It happens every single year. People overanalyze the high-end studs at the top of their fantasy football draft list. But can we be honest with each other here for just a second? The first few rounds, it's gonna come down to luck. Can those big-time studs stay healthy or not? So I'm not gonna come on here today and tell you how great Tyreek Hill is. I think you already know that, and it really doesn't help anyone. Instead, I'm gonna give you 5 lower-ranked wide receivers that have league-winning upside in 2024. Now I think it's important that I start today off by telling you what my definition of a league-winning player is in fantasy football. There is no official fantasy football dictionary where we're all going by the same set of terms with the same meanings. No, it's something different to everyone. So when I'm really looking for a league winner, I'm looking for a guy that can have some high-end fantasy production that I got on an extreme discount during my fantasy football draft. When you pay that heavy price tag at the start of your draft, you're expecting production. But when you can draft somebody in the later rounds that definitely outproduces their ADP, those are the players that carry your team to victory. But let me tell you what, let me give you a little bit of an example here. We all have a vision of what we expect from our team after our draft is over. But how often does it go exactly how we planned all year long? That's an easy answer. The answer to that is never. It never goes as planned. And this is why that matters. If you have an early round stud that goes down due to injury, but you have a later round player on your bench that is popping off that you can plug right in, your team doesn't even skip a beat and you'll be teabagging your league mates once again. Now, on the other hand, if you have a stud like Tyreek Hill go down, and you have to put Christian Watson into your lineup, you are royally effed. Because we all know that Christian Watson's gonna only play a handful of games all year long before he's hurt again. And when he goes out, what, you gotta put in Kadarius Toney? Yeah, bye-bye season. But don't worry, that's why we're here today, because I'm going to give you 5 wide receivers that have that potential league-winning upside. Now, if you want to maximize your chances at becoming a league winner in fantasy football, you need to also consider getting our draft guide. But here's what's crazy about it. It's already live. It's only April, and our draft guide is available not only just to order, but there's content there and waiting for you already. But how can we have content there so early? It's because we have dynasty content and redraft content here in 2024. But what makes it even better, as I said, F inflation, we're not even gonna raise the price this year. We're gonna include more content for more formats at the same price. All you need to do is head over to tfhdraftguide.com. There's links down below in the description and get your order placed now. You can also get a free draft guide if you sign up for Underdog Fantasy using our referral code Headliners and making that initial $10 deposit. Now, in a few videos last week, I set some like goals. I said, hey, if these videos could get over 500 likes, I'll give somebody down below in the comment section a free draft guide. We hit 500 likes on those videos, so let's announce a couple winners. So congratulations to Alan Presig? Alan, my bad if I butchered your last name. My bad, bro. I appreciate you. You know that. And then Daryl Moody 7007, you were randomly selected for a free 2024 fantasy football draft guide. All you got to do is send me an email over to info@thefantasyheadliners.com and I will get you hooked up, but I want to do the same thing on this video. If this video right here today can get over 600 likes, I will pick a random commenter down below to give a free 2024 fantasy football draft guide. So go ahead, hit the like button, leave a comment down below, and let's talk about our first wide receiver in today's video. It's George Pickens of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And as we sit here entering 2024, right now we don't even know what the actual ceiling is for George Pickens. He had a solid 2023, 106 targets, 63 catches, 1,140 receiving yards, and 5 touchdowns. But when I just read you that stat line, what stood out to you? There should have been something that definitely caught your attention. 106 targets and only 63 receptions. He only had 3 drops all year, so it's not George Pickens' fault. It was the fact that his quarterbacks last season could not deliver catchable balls. George Pickens last year had only 73 catchable targets all season long. That's only 68.9% of his total targets. That catchable target rate would have ranked him as the wide receiver 61 overall overall in the NFL just last season. So we know his quarterback play sucked. But what about his inconsistent volume? Some weeks, they acted like George Pickens wasn't even on the field. Every game in 2023 where George Pickens saw at least 8 targets, he had over 100 yards receiving. Yet, only had 4 games all year long where he saw 8+ targets. I'm not a rocket scientist, but if I'm an NFL head coach and I can see that one of my players performs whenever we give him an opportunity to perform, I'm going to give him more opportunity. Which brings us to 2024 now, and we know that we have Justin Fields and Russell Wilson both playing quarterback in Pittsburgh at this time. And honestly, I don't even care who starts and plays quarterback for them this year. Either one of those guys is infinitely better than Kenny Pickett, Mitchell Trubisky, or Mason Rudolph. It's definitely a step in the right direction. But there are also a ton of available targets in this offense that George Pickens can now soak up. Deontay Johnson, he's gone. He's in Carolina. Allen Robinson, currently a free agent. Not like he did a whole lot anyway, but those two guys alone combined for 136 targets in 2023. If George Pickens can go out there and get over 1,100 yards and 5 touchdowns in a horrible situation, now we're going to give him more volume and more catchable volume. That is absolutely huge. He could easily turn into a guy that goes out in 2024 and gets around 1,300 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns. Not some crazy stat line, but I do have one concern. It's that Arthur Smith is now the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh, and we saw him absolutely kill the Atlanta offense in 2023. Don't screw this up, Arthur. You medium shirt wearing, silver spoon eating, smug mother. That's my bad. I got PTSD when it comes to Arthur Smith offenses. But I think we can all look at this situation in Pittsburgh and see that George Pickens has the potential to pop off, and we're going to get him at a great price. What is he currently sitting at? Wide receiver 30? Great price currently for George Pickens. Not a guy you'd have to be overly reliant upon in your draft. I mean, he's probably going to be, your wide receiver 3 maybe on your team. The potential upside, the league winning upside could be huge. But what about Terry McLaurin as well? He's currently the wide receiver 34, a few spots behind George Pickens. And as I sit here right now, I wish I could just say, you know what, everything I just said about George Pickens, ditto that. It goes for Terry McLaurin too, because the similarities are there for sure. But that's lazy as hell, and I'm not going to take the easy road. When we're just talking about George Pickens, something we talked about was catchable targets and how bad they were for him. Terry McLaurin had it even worse. In 2023, McLaurin had 132 targets, 79 receptions, 1,002 yards, and 4 touchdowns. 132 targets and only 79 receptions. It wasn't his fault he wasn't catching him. He only had 1 drop all year long. He only received, listen to this, he only received 85 catchable targets, 65.4% of his total targets on the year. That would have ranked him as the wide receiver 76 overall in that metric. The dude was basically a deep ball decoy most of the year. 85 catchable targets, and he caught 79 of them. But I think we can all look at that Washington offense last year and just kind of go, it was kind of disgusting, right? Was there even really a game plan? Because as soon as they would start the game, they would fall behind by so many scores that they'd have to just go out there and throw for their life each and every week. It was bad each week in Washington, but things are going to be different here this year in 2024. We got ourselves a new coaching staff. Some big-time changes are probably coming, including the rumors that the Washington Commanders could be selecting Jayden Daniels, Heisman-winning quarterback out of LSU. If that happens, you have to think that that helps this offense take a small step forward. But it's not just Jayden Daniels. We also have a new coaching staff in Washington. Head coach Dan Quinn and offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury. Overall, this is a huge upgrade to the play calling in Washington. I know a lot of people will see Cliff Kingsbury and they'll relate back to what they saw in Arizona. Is Cliff Kingsbury a solid head coach? Not really. As an offensive coordinator, though, the air raid offense that he runs, is definitely going to help pad some fantasy stats. Will that make Washington a Super Bowl contender? I'm sorry, Washington fans, but no, probably not. But when it comes to fantasy football, it is a big upgrade. Now, we also know that Curtis Samuel is gone. He soaked up some targets in this offense just last year. He's gone. He's in Buffalo. But the big-time fantasy draft day discount right now for Terry McLaurin is almost too much to pass on. As wide receiver 34, the ceiling is absolutely huge. We have top 12 ceiling for Terry McLaurin. We've seen him produce year after year after year. The guy basically is like diet Mike Evans. He's going to go out and get 1,000 yards a year. You kind of know that. And at wide receiver 34, huge discount. Which takes us to Jameson Williams now, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, currently wide receiver 48. And I think at this point so far, he can be viewed as a huge disappointment. Do I want to call him a bust yet? Not just yet. He hasn't really gotten an opportunity to produce, but that big time hype coming out of Alabama, a first round pick in the NFL draft. However, through 2 years of his career, he has a total combined 25 catches for 395 yards and 3 touchdowns. But is this the year that he can finally break out? And I say that because we started to see a little bit more Jameson Williams down the stretch in 2023. He started to get more involved on a weekly basis. So what this really comes down to is volume. He just needs volume. He needs targets. And luckily, he plays on one of the best overall offenses in the NFL. We know that Jared Goff is capable of supplying multiple wide receivers. We know the touchdown upside is there in this offense. Opposing defenses, a lot of them are focusing on Amon-Ra St. Brown, Sam Laporta, and trying to figure out how to stop that running game. J-Mo should see more one-on-one coverage this year than anyone else in this offense. But where I really see there's an opportunity for him to perform this year, there's going to be some available targets for him in this offense. Detroit said goodbye to Josh Reynolds and nearly his 60 targets or so a season. You have to think that Jameson Williams is going to see a chunk of those targets now. Now, just because he sees that big uptick in targets does not mean that we're going to see a huge uptick in receptions. That's not really the game of Jameson Williams. That's more Amon-Ra St. Brown. What Jameson Williams can do is stretch the field and score fantasy points in bunches. Just last year, his average depth of target was 15.6 yards down the field. That was 5th highest among all wide receivers in the NFL, and then he turned that into an average of just under 15 yards per reception. I mean, if the guy could go out and catch 70 balls, he's a 1,000-yard wide receiver. So ask yourself this question: would you be happy with a 1,000-yard wide receiver on your bench because you drafted him at wide receiver 48 overall? Now, by no means can we look at him as some week 1 starter, somebody you want to rely upon, but when you look at the potential upside and the huge discount, it's there for Jameson Williams. All right, what about Josh Palmer, wide receiver for the Los Angeles Chargers, currently wide receiver 57? And we've talked about Josh Palmer on this channel for years. We've always said that he could be a consistent high-end performer if he got consistent targets. We've seen that at times in LA. He's had to step up with injuries to Mike Williams and Keenan Allen at times. But now, both those guys are gone, along with Austin Eckler. So really right now, basically, the Chargers have Josh Palmer and Quentin Johnston, and that's about it. They also have a new coaching staff with new head coach Jim Harbaugh. And Harbaugh isn't exactly known for having some super heavy passing volume offense. Now, a lot of people think the Chargers are going to go out and get themselves another pass catcher in the NFL draft. But that doesn't scare me away from Josh Palmer, really. He's going to enter 2024 as the only wide receiver that Justin Herbert has really heavily utilized in this offense in the past before. They have that past chemistry. There's a reason the Chargers let Keenan Allen and Mike Williams go. Why spend all that extra money at one position when you have cheaper options already on your roster that can get the job done? But like I just said, we know this isn't going to be a high volume passing offense, maybe like we've seen in the past for the Chargers. But even in a low volume offense, they're going to throw the ball over 400 times a year. There's definitely going to be a chance for Josh Palmer to see huge targets. It would not surprise me whatsoever if Josh Palmer flirts with being a top 24 overall wide receiver on the season, and he's going to be drafted outside the top 50 at the position. Huge upside, huge discount. Kind of smells like a potential league winner. Which brings me to our last guy here today. It's Jaylen Hayes, wide receiver of the New York Giants, currently wide receiver 76 overall. Now, I do want to say this with Jaylen Hayes. We need some things to happen for him to really take that huge step forward. He needs better quarterback play, and he needs more consistent volume. But a lot of people have forgotten about Jaylen Hayes because he really wasn't utilized last season. But you can't forget that this team is desperate for playmakers. Arguably, their best playmaker, Saquon Barkley, is now gone to a division rival in Philadelphia. Jaylen Hayes possesses big-time speed in an offense that really needs some big plays. And who's he really competing with? I mean, when you look at the wide receiver group in New York, it's like a hodgepodge of misfit toys. Now, it also worries me a little bit that we could be reliant on Daniel Jones coming back from an injury, but there's also rumors out there surrounding the New York Giants and whether or not they could bring in a quarterback at the NFL draft. Now, I will say this, I want full disclosure, Jaylen Hayes is not going to be one of those guys that I have to absolutely draft in every one of my leagues towards the end. But he is going to be one of those guys that we need to pay attention to early on when it comes to the waiver wire. If he comes out in week 1 and gets a decent target share, and you have a spot on the bottom of your bench with just some nobody that you're waiting to see if he pops off, Jaylen Hayes could become a priority add. A big-time receiver with big-time speed on a team that's going to need some plays to be made. Jaylen Hayes is definitely a name to pay attention to, but I had to include somebody super far down the list, kind of as a lottery ticket type play, because if he gets the opportunity, Jaylen Hayes could go off. But I want to know who you think is a potential league winner at the wide receiver position here in 2024. Leave those comments down below, and don't forget, hit the like button. As soon as this video hits 600 likes, I'm going to give away a free 2024 fantasy football draft guide to a random commenter down below. Leave the comment, hit the like button, but most importantly, do your part to make the world a better place.